John actually sent me over a summary here.
Perfect.
So, he said that we have the official bio, but I think his brother John summed it up pretty nicely. So I'm going to read what John wrote in the email here. He said, all right, so let's welcome Colonel Brandon Meno. He served the U.S. Army since his commission as Field Artillery Officer in 1986. He served at Fort Bragg twice, Republic of Korea, Fort Carson, Fort Benning, and JBLM. This includes serving with all 3 Ranger battalions and Ranger Regiment in many deployments to Afghanistan and Iran. His recent assignments include Battalion Commander, U.S. Army War College, and then in July he finished a 2-year command as a Brigade Commander of the 2nd Infantry Division Artillery at JBLM. His current assignment is the Inspector General responsible. Sorry, I got cut off here a little bit. Responsible to the Corps Commander at JBLM. And besides his undergraduate degree, he has also earned 2 master's degrees. He has numerous awards and decorations, but his brother John believes that he's most proud of his Army Rangers tab. The Rangers feel the same about him. In 2019, Brandon was named Distinguished Ranger and is on the Ranger Wall of Valor. It's basically their Hall of Fame at the regiment headquarters. Couple little known facts about Brandon that John wanted to tell us about. And he said, Brandon asked Shaq, or Shaquille O'Neal, to sign a Sports Illustrated magazine with Shaq on the cover when they're both at LSU. Brandon was a high school all-state linebacker in Louisiana, and LSU football asked him to walk on. And then last but not least, John writes that Brandon is the second of 4 Meno boys. Their mother was so happy with their first son, John, that she tried to duplicate him 3 times before giving up. So let's all welcome Colonel Brandon Meno.
Hey, so Dave, do I have, should I share my screen? Okay. Okay, so before I have Brandon talk, I was just going to share some pictures on here. Whoops. Sorry, I got to get all you guys off of my screen so I can see what I'm showing on here.
Where'd you get that? That's all like classified.
So sometimes Brandon plays with things that go bang. This was at down at Fort Benning, Georgia, where Brandon received the Distinguished Ranger Award. This is his family at one of the most beautiful institutions in the world. We have Christy back here, his oldest Taylor, followed by Maggie and Jackson. This is one of Brandon's change of commands. These kids here have moved quite a bit in their lifetime. Taylor, they've moved about 11 times. Taylor's a freshman, has attended 6 schools during her lifetime. And so we'll talk a little bit about Brandon's future after this. This right here is at a change of a command when he was taking the brigade. And this is when Brandon returned from deployment. It was always a happy time, but he missed out on so much of his family's life. And sorry, Brandon.
I'm glad you're doing this.
So this is at his last change of command with the 4 of us. Mom and Dad had 4 boys, like we said. And the other 3 are experiments, and they gave up after they didn't turn out as good as the first one. So what I wanted to tell you real quickly about Christy here, the rotary has a wheel with a hub in the middle. And in a military life, a military family, the hub of that wheel is the spouse. So my sister-in-law has kept their family together and done a lot. So kudos to Christy. It's not easy to be a military spouse. So, Brandon, I'm now going to get to the agenda. I'm glad I got through that one. That wasn't as easy as I thought. Okay, let's. All right, Brandon, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, John, I'm glad you were the one doing that, because you were starting to, I was getting emotional just watching those pictures. So thanks to my big brother for introducing me and for asking me to come and speak and really just talk with you, because hopefully this can be a dialogue. Again, when he asked me, I said, wow, you guys are really scraping the bottom of the barrel for guest speakers by asking me for a three-peat on this one. The first time, for those of you who weren't around, after my first deployment to Iraq, just to clarify, I did not deploy to Iran. It's only been Iraq and Afghanistan. But my first deployment to Iraq after a year over there, and then I had the good fortune of talking to the group. I think it was back in 2004, and then again when we first moved back here in 2017, and now this is my swan song, I guess. As soon as I retire, I won't make the cut for guest speaker, but. John asked me to kind of do a review of my time as the Divardi, and that's the shorthand for Division Artillery, my time in command there. And then in between, it's not highlighted on this agenda, just kind of talk about my decision, or our decision as a family, to transition out in a couple of years. And then that's what kind of led me to my current position, which is the First Corps Command Inspector General. And then, it's just going to be my opinion based on my observations in what we call the Indo-PACOM area of responsibility, which is the entire Pacific Rim. And they just changed that title of Indo-PACOM from just PACOM, and just kind of a teaser out there. So, our biggest threat, our pacing threat, is China. And so we're really kind of nestling up closely as best we can with some of the countries throughout the Pacific. And then the reason why we changed the name to Indo-PACOM is because the next largest army in the world is India. And as you've already seen in open source news feeds, that India and China are having some challenges with each other on India's northeast border. So we can get back to that. I'll try and answer any questions that you guys have. But to explain what a Divardi is, so a division is commanded by a two-star general, and within a division you have anywhere from 4 to 6 brigades that are commanded by 06s or colonels. And one of those brigades is a division artillery. And so the role of the division artillery is to mass artillery fires, air fires, to support the division commander's intent, what he wants to accomplish, and really to kind of shape the battlefield for their subordinate brigades as they're moving on to their objectives. This is a very unique Divardi, and it's not just unique because I was in it. The 2nd Infantry Division is headquartered not here at JBLM, but over in Korea. And it's that Indian head patch that if you are privy to anything in JBLM, you'll see a lot of Indian head patches. The division that's here that I was actually assigned to was the 7th Infantry Division. So it was really kind of a delicate dance to have to, I don't want to say entertain, but have to talk to two masters, two division commanders. And our specific Divardi had three missions. The first one was OPLAN, or Operational Plan Support, and that was over in Korea. So obviously, if you've been listening to the news the past 3 years, you know that, for lack of a better word, that jackass up in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, or KJU, and he's pretty volatile, and so that is the OPLAN support. That is our role in the operational plan in the event that North Korea decides to invade. So we spent quite a bit of time over there over the course of my 2 years in command, there was a lot of travel. And so a lot of that travel was, in fact, in Korea. The second one is really kind of something new. So an operating concept in the joint, which is all the services and then the Army, is multi-domain operations. So historically, we've always talked about fighting in the air, land, and sea. And now we're adding additional domains: space, cyber, and information operations. And so if you take all 6 of those, what they're calling that is multi-domain operations. How do we compete with our adversaries and the threats in all 6 domains? And, you're either at conflict, at war, or you're in competition. Those are really kind of the 2 phases. And right now we're in competition with our adversaries. And so one of the biggest, the pacing threat that everything revolves around is China. I mean, and that's not classified at all. It is in open source. It's in our national defense strategy, our national military strategy. And so everything is aligned to counter that threat. What multi-domain operations, that the advent of multi-domain operations is that China, we've historically had free reign throughout the sea. We could go anywhere, and we maintain the freedom of navigation in those sea lines of communication, or SLOCs. And now those are a threat. If you think about the South China Sea, which, the Chinese are fabricating islands out there. And then they're, and that's, if you look at the first island chain that's off of China, an aircraft carrier, there was nothing more powerful that we could display to the world than an aircraft carrier parked off the coast. Well, the Chinese have developed weapon systems that outrange anything that the aircraft carrier and its carrier strike group can employ, and that includes aircraft. So we think, maybe about 750 nautical miles is the range of aircraft. They've got systems that put the aircraft carriers at risk, weapon systems, and those are sea-based cruise missiles, land-based cruise missiles, and some of those missiles can reach out all the way to what we call the third island chain, which is Guam. And so what the multi-domain task force does is it takes cyber professionals, space professionals, electronic warfare, all the squishy stuff that those of us in the Army are not used to using, and it kind of coordinates and synchronizes their effects in an area to gain access to China. So if you think about a bubble that all these weapon systems create, that are based off their maximum range, the multi-domain task force mission is to create a seam or access to that particular area of China to allow either sea, air, or land forces access to that. So it was really kind of an exciting mission, and it was, gave us an opportunity at the 06 level to really enable some of the decisions that they were making at the Army and the Joint Staff level. So welcome to answer any questions about that. And then the last mission that we had that really had us on the road, we had a total of 5 battalions that were subordinate to the DIVARTY that we had training readiness authority over. So we were responsible for training those 5 organizations to be prepared to go to combat. 3 battalions were here at JBLM, and then 2 were up in Alaska. And so that just involved quite a bit of travel in addition to travel to Korea, and then the multi-domain operations exercises had us throughout the Pacific: Japan, Philippines, Guam, Australia, and New Zealand, just to name a few. So those were the 3 missions that this DIVARTY did. In a normal DIVARTY, you would only have that 3rd mission, the Training Readiness Authority. So before I go on to the Corps Inspector General, during that time, first off, I never thought the Army would, I always thought that the Army would tell me to retire. It wouldn't be the other way around. And so the 2 years in command, just the time away, missing out on some things. I've been deployed 12 times, so that's obviously I missed quite a few events with those deployments. And then just the fact that we were back here around family. And I think those of you who know John really well know how important family is. And so we made the decision last summer that we're not moving. We're going to stay here. We're going to be around the family. And it just couldn't have worked out any better. Really, really tough decision for me professionally, probably the toughest that I've had to make. But, when I talk to soldiers, I always say your family's your legacy. If you put everything you have into this Army, then you run the risk of not having a family left standing next to you when you walk off that field as you retire. So I would have been a hypocrite if I didn't heed my own advice or heed Christy's recommendation. But it's still a tough decision nonetheless, because I love what I do. I love the service. So anyway, that led me to seek out the job of the Corps Command Inspector General. And I'm relatively new to the job, just got school trained, so I'm official now. It's pretty kind of a scary concept, but I report directly to the Commanding General for First Corps. And I am essentially the commander's eyes, ears, voice, and conscience. And I extend that through my interactions with subordinate commanders. I'm around the CG, the Commanding General, quite a bit, so I need to listen to how he's communicating his vision, his intent, his philosophy. And then when I go out, and it's a unique opportunity here because I have great relationships with all the subordinate commanders. I can go out and I'm impartial, but I can figure out if that message is making it down to the lowest level. And I like having that autonomy. The CG said, Brandon, I want you out and about. And I'm a little bit of a social butterfly, so that was kind of music to my ears. So the Corps, the Inspector General, I report directly to the Commanding General. The Army's Inspector General reports directly to the Sec Army. And I would say within the last 6 months, you've heard of quite a few instances where Inspector Generals were getting fired. That's not important. Just know that when you hear Inspector Generals in these other government agencies, they're more, the vast majority of them are lawyers. And so that's the difference between those agencies, Inspector Generals, and then the Army's Inspector Generals. We do work very, very closely with the Staff Judge Advocate, the Army's lawyers, to make sure that any investigations or assistance that we're providing are legally sufficient. The IG has 4 primary functions. First is teaching and training, and that is constant. The second one is inspections, and those are, the old school Inspector General was kind of the one who hid behind. He would do the no notice inspections. He'd hide behind the notebook, and any observations he made could be held, could be used for adverse action against either that unit or that particular commander. Nowadays, it's very much a how can we help type of approach. The inspections are laid out far enough in advance. We already have the inspection plan that we're going to execute for fiscal year 21, starting October 1st through September 30th of 2021. We already have that laid out. We already know the organizations. We're communicating with them. So there's no gotcha. It is just it's an opportunity for us to kind of do a deep dive into some of those areas that the Commanding General deems very important. The third function is assistance, and that's if a soldier, young soldier, or anybody can call the IG. All of you can call the IG and make and file a complaint or ask for assistance. It's kind of like the Google search for the Army. Ideally, the chain of command is supposed to resolve a lot of these issues, but sometimes the chain of command is stuck, or sometimes that soldier he needs to know quicker, and he doesn't necessarily have faith in his immediate chain of command to get the answer. And so he'll come to the IG and he'll just kind of say, look, I'm having this pay issue and I need help resolving it. This is what I've done so far. And we wield a powerful sword when we talk about, hey, this is the IG calling, and I'd like to, request your assistance to help this young soldier. That's probably the most enjoyable part of that, is just helping soldiers solve problems. And then the last one is investigations. And it's always, it doesn't matter what organization you're in, what agency you're in, their investigations will likely always be a part of life, unfortunately. And so if an individual comes in and files a complaint, it is an allegation or it's an issue. An issue requires assistance. An allegation requires an investigation. So an allegation is somebody has done something wrong improperly. There is some sort of impropriety that has been done. And so either the IG or the chain of command is going to investigate that. And I think in 2018, Secretary of Defense Esper, at the time, was the Secretary of the Army, and he pushed down the directive that the vast majority of these investigations will be executed by the chain of command instead of the Inspector General. And that's where that needs to take place. Let the chain of command be the hero. Let the chain of command solve the problem that exists down there. So that's kind of a quick down and dirty about the Inspector General. I know enough to be dangerous now, but I've got a phenomenal team here. I've got 3 civilians, a lieutenant colonel, a major, and then quite a few senior NCOs, and that's their job. Real quick about the strategic outlook, I mentioned a little bit of that during the discussion on multi-domain operations. I will tell you what the Army and likely the military writ large are doing based off the just the events that transpired after the George Floyd incident, and that's, I used to think that the Army's not a social engineering agency. However, we do it better than anybody else. We can enact change in an organization because, unfortunately, we can make things punitive. And so, I always prided myself in being a part of an organization that didn't really see color, race, and I know it hasn't always been perfect, but I feel like the military and from my perspective, the Army is pretty good about the diversity and the inclusion aspect of that. And so there's today I'm not in uniform because we had a foundational readiness day, and that's where we discussed some of these topics that are really difficult to discuss. And the Army has historically just said, all right, so we've got some PowerPoint presentations to discuss suicide awareness, sexual assault and harassment, equal opportunity. Those are just kind of some difficult conversations to have. And especially when you're asking folks to come forward with some of their own stories to make it, kind of sink in. And so across the Army, we're having these foundational readiness days once a month. And the goal is to really team build, number one. And number two, set aside the time to have these uncomfortable conversations. And really the big one right now is obviously race. As far as the geopolitics, the strategic outlook, like I said, China is still the pacing threat. We're not concerned about, we're concerned about the Russians, but the Russians, as far as a threat, a physical threat, they're not much of one. And plus we've got the entire NATO alliance that would help us there. But I mentioned some things that we're doing in the Indo-PACOM AOR. We're cozying up to India. We're developing or improving existing relationships with some of our partners in the Pacific that we had let atrophy in the past. And so all of that is just kind of as a buffer to China, because neither one of us want to go to war. I mean, it would be a world war, and everyone would lose. And I don't think we will, because our economies are so closely linked together. It wouldn't make sense economically, but it wouldn't make sense for a lot of other reasons too. And so with that, I'll close and open it up to any questions.
Hey, Brandon, Gene Chase here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Well, I want to say your bio wasn't handled right because you're smarter than John. But on a serious note, for the rest of the people that are listening, you handle it very well. I'm an old Army guy from the 60s. But I hope these people realize that an IG, an Inspector General, is the next closest thing to God in the United States Army. If you're called into, or you get a phone call from the IG, you better get your ass over there. But I really have great respect for it. I'm glad to see you're doing it.
Can you pass that message on to my kids?
Yeah, I'll pass it on to them. But they probably won't pay any more attention to me than they do you.
Thanks, Gene.
One thing that I wanted to, what I was thinking about earlier when I mentioned how many deployments and how many times the kids have moved, et cetera. Brandon has, and Brandon, you'll probably be mad at me for sharing this, but I am very proud of you. He had his review with his leaders, and he was basically put down the path where he would be probably a 2-star general down the road. And to give that up to be with family just tells you how important a family is for Brandon and the career. Because like you said, he liked what he did, and the service is part of his heart as well. So Brandon, but it'll be good to have you, because all these coons on the screen here, they like to come to our Apple Cup, as you know, and I need some help just carrying them around after they leave.
No problem.
So Brandon, this is Tony Warner. First, thank you for your service, sir. I greatly appreciate it. What's your current rank? I missed that.
I'm a colonel.
Colonel, okay. Well, again, thank you for your service. I'm an old grunt, so.
All right.
Hey,
Thanks, Tony.
hey, Tony, they call that a full bird.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Gene.
Tony, if you're a grunt, then you know the value of field artillery, right?
Oh, yeah. So,
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate that.
thank
Yeah,
you.
Lee Harmon here, Navy guy, and really do appreciate your service, Brandon, and it's a pleasure to hear you speak today. I did a long journey with an artilleryman last year, 6 weeks in a small car going across a couple continents, and we had lots of interesting times to talk. And he has this saying about artillery brings to the battle what would otherwise be a snarling brawl. And he says it much better than I can remember. Do you remember that saying?
Yes,
entirely?
absolutely. Artillery lends dignity to what would otherwise be a vulgar brawl.
There you go.
We just clean things up.
Thank you very much for your service.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that.
So Brandon, did you go to Ranger School?
I did. So I went to
At
Ranger
Banning,
School
okay, yeah.
as a lieutenant, and then like John mentioned, I was fortunate enough because it's luck and timing to be able to go serve in the Ranger Regiment.
Right. So did you go to airborne school there as well then?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Same towers exist.
I don't think it exists anymore, but my basic training was at Harmony Church.
Yeah, so that's where my dad went to Ranger School.
Oh,
that was
really?
Harmony Church.
Okay.
So Harmony Church is now the basic training place. So they've expanded it. So the armor school, tankers, used to be at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Now
Right.
they've combined the armor and the infantry at Fort Benning, and they call it the Maneuver Center of Excellence.
Really? Okay, because when I was there, it was Harmony Church or Sand Hill.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Wow.
So there are some other photographs, I think, in that slideshow. I don't know if you're going to show those, John, or
Oh, I'm sorry. So did they not come up earlier?
The photos did. The slides that I had were hidden, but you're more than welcome to share those, John. It's just some backups in case I needed some help
Oh,
in the
okay.
bullpen.
Well, how about if I'll leave this picture up instead, since the agenda's done here. So Brandon, real quickly, we got about 5 minutes left. You you shared how accurate some of the artillery is. Can you share just a quick synopsis of the accuracy of some of the artillery now? And
Yeah, sure. So we've got the systems that we have employed right now. We have the Army Tactical Missile System, which is called the ATACMS, and that's a 500-pound class munition. That is accurate to 5 meters, and it goes over 300 kilometers or 180 miles. So if you want to, we call it the long-range sniper, and but it's a really big sniper weapon. I will tell you that one of the things that we're doing to counter the artillery threat and to help us with this multi-domain is we're developing precision strike missiles, which is it's going to take the place of the ATACMS. And we were limited by I forgot what the treaty was, but we're no longer limited by it. So now the range of these precision strike missiles, which will be half the size of an ATACMS, but just as lethal, they'll go over 500 miles. And then we have the strategic long range systems, and you've heard of hypersonic, and I wish I knew more about it, but it is a physics. If there are any physicists out there, you may be able to explain that. But essentially, the hypersonic weapons travel thousands of miles, and the intent is to protect our resources and take out, basically peel back the onion of that layer of defense that exists around China right now.
so John or Brandon, what's the idea behind the Space Force that they're talking about?
So it's still amazing to me that in my lifetime they're just creating another branch of service. So you've got the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and now you have the Space Force. And I think the intent was just to consolidate all our space activities from a Department of Defense perspective, and because and it's really to kind of collaborate with those space activities that are going on with some of those civilian companies. I think is Elon Musk, his company, and I think Amazon's got some activity going on. But that's the intent, is to consolidate all the DoD space activities, because everything is reliant on space activities now. I mean, it's incredible and it's an area of the battlefield that has not yet been defined clearly. And so we don't know what would happen if somebody tried to shoot out one of our satellites. So
Thank you.
I wish I could give you more. That's what I know.
I had a question for you. And, first off, thank you so much for your service. I wanted to check in with you and ask you, with all this aggression that you're seeing from China, does anybody really know what their end goal is and why they're being so aggressive?
Yes, there are thoughts on why they're doing what they're doing. And it's the 100-year plan for China to get them back to being a world power like they considered themselves previously. The end state, I'm not quite sure, but it's, in my opinion, it's to have leverage. You know, when they're buying up all these countries' debts, it's for a reason. It's to put them under the thumb of China and have leverage on them. And I think with the COVID crisis that was going on, I think that really kind of highlighted how vulnerable we are from a supply chain perspective, how much we rely on China to just manufacture for us. So, but I think the current plan is to just gain leverage, and it's all to reclaim their place as a world superpower that they thought they were. So, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Brandon?
I would say if there are no other questions, one last opportunity to say thanks to all of you for what you do. Everyone is serving in this organization. I really appreciate that. And I know that John and I have talked about, you know, because we live in University Place right now. This is where we're going to retire, at least until the kids get through school. But Rotary Club is certainly something that I want to explore as an opportunity to continue to serve, just in a different capacity. And it'll be hard to, you know, to not compare it to the group that you guys have up there in Arlington. You guys have a lot of fun, and I appreciate that. And hopefully there's an opportunity down here for me to be a part of Rotary. So thank you again. Thanks to my big bro. Super proud of him for everything that he does and for being our biggest fan.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.